This is crazy. So there's been a huge fake memorabilia autograph scheme that's going down. Over 20 years of forging. One of the biggest eBay resellers on the application. It seems that the scheme was so big that the guy that was perpetrating it unalived himself. I'm from the school that if you don't see that autograph in front of you, most likely it's probably fake. Crazy stuff. What's y'all opinion?
All right, welcome to an emergency episode of Grading the Market. Rudy Campos Jr., of course, Jacob, Eric, and Anthony are your Grading the Market host. Kind of doing an emergency show right now because of the latest scandal that's kind of rocking the sports memorabilia world. We're not going to waste any time right now. It's going to bring on our guest here, the one and only. It is Mr. Matt Schilling here. Matt, welcome back to Grading the Market. And yeah, I mean, it's basically, getting right to the thick of things. Major turn of events. I mean, you're talking about a $350+ million sports memorabilia scandal. Drop the latest for everybody on Grading the Market because this affects a whole lot of people in so many ways.
That's right. Thanks, Rudy. Always good to be back. That said, this is pretty much going to turn the hobby upside down. It's going to, really separate the trust authenticators have with the collecting public. And I think that, what we find ourselves in the very least, is somewhat of a hobby reset, right? You have an instance where, this is a 2-decade minimum $300 million, maximum $1 billion plus fraud, where it essentially became an addiction for the guy that, quick, easy money, build reputations, take almost a, mafia style approach to this. Hey, nobody can, mess with me because of my reputation. If somebody gets in my way, I'm just going to push them aside kind of thing. And that got to his head. And the crazy part about the entire thing is, like you said earlier, he unalived himself. So, in the school that I come from, that's, screams guilt. But the even crazier part is this is just this week. This is Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, today. Nobody really knows the depth and breadth of this other than the fact that there are major names that are mentioned. There are partnerships that he had in place. And he essentially went public with the manifesto right when, a combination of federal, state, and local authorities rolled up with semi trucks, and they wanted records and they wanted his evidence. And, the crazy part about this is it's all kept in sort of buttoned up to himself. Maybe there are other co-conspirators, maybe there aren't. There's no proof to the names he's mentioned, so we don't necessarily want to go there. But still, this is an insane black eye to the industry. In the wake of Fanatics Fest, on the cups of the National, this is just the stuff that's going to shatter collectors' trust in the hobby. Now, there's a lot of secondary and ancillary comments coming out, and people from all walks and corners are putting out statements. I wasn't affiliated with this guy. We never did business with this guy. Not sure if that's a precautionary CYA approach to this, but what I can tell you is there are millions and millions of collectors that are impacted by this.
Yeah, it's impacting the entire industry. And the crazy part is that it opens up a whole lot more questions. You want to follow Matt, be sure to follow Matt, as you can tell, at MJ Schilling on X. And also he does collectibles on SI. So be sure to go to si.com/collectibles. You can find Matt's articles on there. Great articles. He releases them very, very frequently, man. So the thing we're talking about today is, the latest thing that was rocking the sports memorabilia world this week already. To kind of recap here, we'll do that in a second. Let me get some of the comments here. Please, this says, hey, Rudy and Matt, very popular guy, Matt. I know you are a very popular guy here on Grading the Market. What's good, y'all? Am I late? You are not late. Leha, shout out to MCS General Contracting. We are just getting started. And as mentioned, it's basically, you have a $350 million plus right now a scandal that's rocked the entire sports memorabilia world. And what does that mean for collectors out there? Well, it means, who can you trust? Trust is the biggest word right now, because if you're going out, you're on eBay, you're buying, something that's, say it's PSA graded, everything like that. Well, now you have to consider the fact of, is that a true auto? Is that a, I see the JSA authentic sticker, authenticity sticker. Is it really a JSA sticker? So I'm over here spending, four, five, $800. Maybe some guys are spending, $4,000 for a Kobe autograph, and for all we know, it's fake. And now the biggest question is for Matt here, who can you trust? You made it a little while ago, you made a statement of, trust is broken, but now does it fall upon, whether you're buying on eBay? If I go to a show, which I'm planning to go to a show this weekend, there's going to be a lot of autograph stuff there. Now, do I pick up that, David Robinson signed Topps card that has the sticker on the back, and it's like, oh, hey, this is, authenticated, yada, yada, yada. Is that something that I can trust? I mean, how far can we go with the word trust in this?
So I think that, the good news is, from what I understand, is that we're limited to memorabilia. We're not necessarily, stretching into the card market per se, because the players within that space, the Beckett's, the BGSs, the PSAs, the SGCs, all of those guys, when it comes to authenticating cards, I, to my knowledge, do not believe that Brent Lemieux's partnerships interactions had anything to do directly with the grading companies themselves. Okay. That said, on the flip side of that, there are aspects of certain named companies within his posts that, and I have to be very, very cautious about what I say and how I mention, because I really don't want to mention names aside from what Brett's already mentioned in his context, and we can leave that to the context of the posts themselves.
Exactly.
But what I can say is that his partnerships are with major names throughout the industry. And I think what we need to do as an industry, sort of embrace the suck, if you will, come together, possible establishment of some sort of consortium here. Don't let the middleman, and sorry for all the middlemen out there, or the handlers out there that are involved in the type of business that he was, but leave it to the pros. I think it's just time we have to leave this to the pros. And that is, meaning if I go to a show, I want to go to the provider's booth to where I see either A, that signature happened, or there's trusted professionals at those organizations that are authenticating me autographs or autographed memorabilia. The fact that a third party was used in this instance for so long, because like I said, he kind of ran this as a, either you're with me or you're against me kind of position, but to the exponential point of hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars. This is crazy that nobody thought in 20 years to, sort of check the math, if you will. The absolute production that this guy was putting out in the marketplace was insane. And like you said, right, when the unfortunate events around Kobe Bryant happened, they happened. And, there were, what is it, about 80,000 items that were put into the market within, some exterior reports at 24 to 48 hours. Like, that's insane to me, that the entire hobby was mourning one of the greatest, to ever play the game. And this guy's out there, just profiting or farming profits on, that incident. I mean, that's garbage to me, but it is what it is. And, people wanted to, or thought, I should say, they were acquiring Kobe memorabilia, signed, authenticated memorabilia from a trusted resource. And the fact is they weren't, had no idea of that. But the other fact is nobody thought to check this guy, and maybe they should have.
Yeah, they should. I mean, it really should have. And for you guys out there that are joining us in the stream, we really appreciate it. Leha, PTS, Sith is out there. Appreciate everybody joining us here. the article you're seeing right now, you can go to collectibles on SI. It's www.si.com/collectibles. Look it up. It's going to give you Brett Lemieux's, statement before the whole, committed suicide type thing is what they were, I guess. So is it confirmed that it was Brett that was?
I don't have confirmation
Yeah.
on that. We do know that there was a secondary incident and an address that lines up with him, and that
Yeah.
there was a male deceased upon the arrival of law enforcement.
Okay.
I haven't seen any reports since yesterday morning. If folks have a secondary news source that links to something reliable, not social media, that would be greatly appreciated to either get to myself or Rudy. But from what I understand and what the consensus is that it was he himself. There haven't been any further posts or anything like that. But hey, with a secret like this and mounting pressure from law enforcement, it really tells you at the end of the day that, he was nothing but an industry bully, and one that unfortunately has, piles and piles and piles of profit.
Yeah, and I mean, for those that are reading it right now on the screen, like mentioned, it's Brett Lemieux's his statement, his post that he made. You can clearly see some of the companies, making holograms, and then the biggest thing was, the statement that you have on there. When Kobe died, we put out 80,000 items into the marketplace. It was just mentioned, to a guy that really is in the industry. I know for me, hearing 80,000 Kobe autographs basically coming out the very next day or within days, outside of trading cards, I can't imagine Kobe ever sitting there signing 80,000, parts of, jerseys and basketballs and this and that. I started to think that probably was the one thing that started to get people to think this has to be some kind of ruse, because Kobe wouldn't be able to sign 80,000 items, especially for one guy. That was definitely the part where I thought, okay, that's maybe where law enforcement got like, well, wait a minute, we got to kind of look into this here.
I don't necessarily know that it was so just so everybody understands the timeline of events. There was, to my knowledge, an investigation leading up to Tuesday morning.
Yeah.
Tuesday morning, there was the execution of a warrant. That search warrant yielded Mr. Lemieux to put out this manifest statement of admission, whatever you want to call it. However, that said, you have, sort of this instance where there are potentially even more folks that are involved. But anyway, the admission isn't necessarily that. It's more so on the side of, hey, there are these semi trucks that are pulling up that are, probably going to get loaded with what are known as pallets, but in those pallets, a single sheet of, 8x11 paper that's going to give you, I don't know, 24 to 48 lines of a signature that are all completely forged and counterfeited by Lemieux. So investigation happens, search warrant gets executed. Lemieux puts this out across Autographs 101, basically admitting to the entire thing. In between Tuesday and Wednesday somewhere, instances happen. And then from those instances, we find ourselves in a situation where, there's a deceased body that odds are it's him, although I haven't seen anything confirmed. And then subsequently, we find ourselves here on Thursday nights when this got published. And then, we're kind of here talking about it now. That's kind of all we know. We don't know, what led to what, but we do know that was the order of events, that this is kind of the timeline of where we are. And we don't want to go outside of that. Right. Reverting back in terms of volume and what you said to that regard, right? I don't think Kobe Bryant signed 80,000 things, period, but I don't think that was the kicker either. I think there was something somewhere that was probably worth months and months of an investigation,
Mhm.
and then inclusive of uh, what went down to trigger that. Right when they got there, it's not every day their search warrant gets executed and law enforcement shows up with, you know, gigantic trucks, if you will.
Yeah.
So 18 wheelers, semis, things like that. So there's a treasure trove of information. There's a treasure trove of evidence. And I just think, at the end of the day, the guy knew he was cooked, and
Yeah.
he knew the party was over.
Golly, talking to Matt Schilling again, collectibles on SI. Be sure to follow him on X. It's at MJ Schilling for all the great collectible information, news and notes, everything you need. Go follow Matt Schilling again on X at MJ Schilling. This is kind of eerily similar. And when I say similar, just the idea or the whole aspects behind it to something that happened back in 99, I believe, 99 to 2005 or 6. Operation Bullpen. Now, for those that don't remember Operation Bullpen, it was pretty much the same thing, forgery of celebrity signatures, baseball memorabilia, stuff like that. But this is on a bigger scale because if I'm not mistaken, Maddie, correct me if I'm wrong, Operation Bullpen was about $100 million, $105 million operation.
I was looking that up just now. I think it was something to the tune of that.
If I'm not
The
mistaken.
Operation Bullpen was around 100 million, equivalent to basically 150 million today.
Yeah.
That was in a 7-year investigation from 99 to 06 around celebrity autographs, sports memorabilia. Before that, it was Operation Foul Ball in the early 90s. Right. This was a federal sting against a number of entities. Basically, what happened was there were three phases to this, right? In 99, the FBI made an announcement about the operation, with investigators estimating anywhere from 50 to 90% of memorabilia in the industry was fake.
Yeah.
They began an undercover operation that an agent posing as, I believe, a distributor out of Southeast Asia. That undercover distributor operated through a fake company. That fake company is how they kind of sort of unraveled the web, if you will, right? Discovering forged memorabilia that was being sold through trade publications, shopping channels, retail stores. Back then, you got to remember, that was the era of Home Shopping Network, QVC, different things like that. So what happened was, in one official team store, and I believe it was an MLB store, 75% of the autographs in that inventory were fake. And these were things that were to the likes of Mickey Mantle, Babe Ruth. Um, you know, Somebody even said it had to do with other celebrities of known nature. So there was a 5-state raid in the latter part of October of 99 that resulted in around $10 million in assets confiscated, roughly $500,000 in cash, and then something that we in the hobby have come to think of as a prized and cherished piece of memorabilia known as a cut signature. They found back then that there were the cut signatures of, I think, 4 or 5 presidents that were completely and utterly false and fake and counterfeit. Phase 2 of this was actually, as I mentioned earlier, 3 phases. Phase 2 began in 2002, included forgeries of online sales. So this is going to encompass things in the early stages of the latter stages of the AOL marketplace, early stages of eBay. There were 12 states or 13 states involved in the second phase, if I recall.
Mm.
And phase 3, which was sort of the nail in the coffin, if you will, culminated in the shutting down and raiding and sort of closure of 18 US and Canada based forgery rings and the confiscation of $15 million worth of fake memorabilia. At the end of the day, there were roughly 60 convictions at the federal level. we don't even have indictments yet in what we're calling, the Lemieux scandal, or what I've dubbed the Lemieux scandal, the Autographs 101 scandal, which is just the name of the group that Brett admined and posted this, manifesto / confession on. We're still less than 100 hours old. So we don't know where we are, what we're doing, what we're up to, any of that.
Yeah.
But what we do know is that this thing is going to take weeks, if not months, for all the additional details to come out. There's still a lot to go from the investigative state of things, but one thing I want to point out, and sort of something that caught my eye, right? Prior to this week, anything that was within comps, as the folks and collectors across socials and its shows like to use as a word of reference, within that price range, if it was any of the names mentioned within his article, his sort of manifesto / admission, as I like to call it, their general products would sell and fly off the shelves via in eBay in minutes. When I did some of my own research in the last 48 hours, crickets. The inventories are there. Everybody's aware of what's going on. I think they're just waiting for the dust to settle. But I think at the end of the day, what needs to happen is, the collectors and the big names need to get together. They need to form some sort of consortium. They need to sort of understand the depth and breadth of what's gone on here. And in order to essentially save, if you will, or preserve, if you will, the reputations that are in place, they need to come together and almost maybe establish compliance standards or some sort of regulation or rules, if you will.
Yeah, something's got to come together for all of this, because I mean, there's already been concerns that I'm going to bring up in a second here. There's already concerns with player signatures. Now, I know for a fact when Luka's rookie cards came out, there was a lot of talk about his mom was signing a majority of his rookie cards, because there were some that looked, relatively different from other rookie cards. All the way up until recently, we had Quentin Rampage Jackson call out Leaf product, saying that is not my signature. And this is kind of getting a little carried away, because a question that was brought up by a listener of Grading the Market, shout out to him for dropping the DM on me when they found out that we were going to go live here, was this: in what way does, it was actually a two-part question, in what way does when you're a card collector, you have the redemption and you're like, okay, I don't have the card in front of me, yada, yada, yada. You eventually get the card back in a year, maybe a year and a half sometimes. You've waited. Can we trust that is that person's auto? But the other side of things was, this has to rock the world of repacking and redistributing. So the guys that are repacking cards, and also there's our people out there that'll repack autographed helmets that they've got, JSA's authentication, this and that, jerseys. It's going to have to maybe impact that side of the collectible world. Your thoughts on both of those, Matt, because he was really wanting to know those.
So there's definitely questions there, right? And there's still some market uncertainty when it comes to those. But, there were a couple of folks that came out yesterday and said that, we're a quote unquote trusted repacker. And maybe they're trusted just simply based on followers and reputation and things like that. And that's fine. The question that they had, or the statement that they professionally put out, was, hey, we're not affiliated with this guy. This isn't anything we do. But my question, sort of my counter, being, one of the SMEs on this particular topic within the industry, is, how do you know that?
Exactly.
How are you so sure that an autograph that you hold, that even though it has a sticker hologram, didn't come from him? Because it sounds like 95 to 97% of the marketplace, based on valuation, has. So that's another element of trust we're going to need to almost essentially reinforce or reestablish from collectors to distributors or repackers for that matter.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing right there is the repackers. This, a lot of people don't have a lot of, I guess, trust in a repack. You're buying, say, a repack for $200. They say, well, the ceiling can be 1,000, but the floor is normally like $40, $50. So it's kind of like a gamble, which I totally get. A lot of people don't like that. Now throwing this whole thing into it, I'm wondering, like you mentioned, if it's even going to affect to these guys, because in the back of my mind, when you're telling me that guys came out and said, "Hey, we're trusted," there's already question involved in that. If you really believed in the brand, if you really believed in the product, I've always felt like you shouldn't have to defend yourself. It just kind of is what it is there.
Right. And I think that when it comes to repacking, there's two sort of schools of thought, or there's two segments to this, right? There's the memorabilia repackers, and then there's the card repackers. No matter how you look at it, and I know folks are going to probably comment and tell me I'm wrong, or it is or it isn't, but when you're jumping into a break via eBay, via Facebook, or a repack via eBay, via Facebook, or a mystery pack via eBay, via Facebook, via whatever other platform that's out there, this is a gamble. At the end of the day, it's a gamble. It is not necessarily the same type of gambling as if you go to place a bet on a team, but you're risking, you're buying something in hopes of gaining something. I mean, in the same theory, so is buying a hobby box or a pack of baseball cards. They just tell you the odds per pack on the back, right? Odds are odds at the end of the day. It's the rate or ratio at which you're, going to either succeed or fail based on what your purchase price is, right? For example, Top Series 2, 1 in 10,000 packs for a particular insert card. Do you understand that you may buy 10,000 packs and you may not get that insert card? Yeah. Or, it's a gamble at the end of the day, and anybody that says otherwise is, to me personally, a little bit naive. I've been in this industry for going on 30 plus years. And I've written for the last, regularly for the last year. It is what it is. There's no way around that. The card companies make it, some of them are visible and some of them are transparent about it. Repackers, not so much. I mean, they can tell you what, your floors and your ceilings are, but if you don't want to take that risk and you don't want to take that gamble, or you're going to be upset if you buy $100 or $150 in a repack and you get a $20 piece of memorabilia, albeit a card, jersey, helmet, whatever, that's on you. That's not, that's not anything you can be upset about, because again, unpopular opinion, there's a very large part of the hobby that is gambling, no matter how you want to look at it.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Don't get me wrong. This instance with Lemieux, I know the gambling aspect of it kind of sort of got us off topic a little bit here. The thing with Lemieux is he kind of just tarnished the whole thing. So maybe at the end of the day, what we do and how we resolve repackers or, primary, secondary folks is we make sure we disclose the odds per pack and the odds per break, or the floors and the ceilings, or disclose the entire checklist of what's in that across the entire repack.
I like that idea. You can closing the whole checklist, and kind of reminds me of, I'm gonna get to this comment real quick. Shout out to Leha, MCS General Contractor, John Chris Leha, proud sponsor of Super League Network across the board. He says, I'm new to the hobby, just started last November. I learned real quick, singles on eBay are the best. And that's kind of what I do when I go for singles, buying players and stuff. I do a lot of the eBay stuff just to buy singles. I rarely, unless the autograph is, something that I really, really want and it's relatively inexpensive, I'll do that. But yeah, shout out for him on that comment too, because singles. But I way back when, and I want to say maybe back in 2020, well, golly, what was it, 2019 maybe or so, a buddy of mine and I used to sell at card shows, and we did a repack thing. We had a bunch of hits. We put a hit in each pack, but we listed every single hit that you possibly could get. And that's what I felt was the honesty part about it. people were buying the packs. They were looking at the list. Okay, I open it. Hey, I got this one. Cool. It's on the list. Everything
Right.
on that list is in these packs right here. These are the big hits you can get. So
Hmm.
I totally get that. I love that part of the game here. The thing that I want to do with you is we're pretty much on the last part of the episode
Sure.
here. This is the last segment we're going to do, coming with the Lemieux statement, everything that's gone on. Matt, we're sitting July 30th through August 3rd. It is the 45th National Sports Convention, Collectors Convention. On the eve of this convention, what do you feel like it's going to be at the convention as far as the mood? Is it going to be something where, I mean, let's be real, man. Last year or a year ago, it was the whole backyard break thing that was kind of taking over the entire convention. This year, it is a massive, massive scandal. Is this just a year for the convention where it's going to be really affected by this?
It's my personal take. I won't be there, unfortunately. Um, However, my consensus is this: with this news breaking 2 weeks, 12 days out, whatever it may be,
Yeah.
I think the sentiment is going to be a lot less energetic as it has been in years past, although there are going to be folks there that are going to try and bring other folks' spirits up, which is always cool. But I think this is definitely going to be hanging over the heads of some folks. I think this is going to make collectors sharper, wiser of what's in the marketplace and the price points at which are the marketplace. But I think this is also what's going to sort of bring us to the great reset. You're going to see the markets themselves almost reset, reassess, reprice. But before we can do that, and I think what this does in step one is it definitely puts a lot more collectors on the sidelines, especially those that are in the market for things like jerseys, helmets, pictures.
Mhm.
But I think that, between once the national culminates, because this may be sort of everybody's kind of in a much more conservative mindset, if you will, with this news breaking now. But between when this year's national ends to the beginning of next year's national, I think you're going to see the industry almost mature on the sense of conservatism and um, transparency for with the collector in mind, right? I think collectors are going to want to collect for the sake of collecting, and yes, everybody's still going to be in the market to make a profit, but I think they're going to do that with a much more watchful and a much more detailed oriented eye, if you will.
Great. That's a great statement there, because that's exactly, I had gotten a text message a little while ago, and it's basically asking, are we going to start to see prices of memorabilia come down pre-COVID? I mean,
You're
because of
you're
stuff
going
like
to
this.
see so you're going to see I don't want to say that you're going to see prices come down pre-COVID. What I want to say is I think you're going to see more. You're going to see almost a multi-level approach to this, right? And that multi-prong, whatever you want to call it, right? So let's take July 15th, Wednesday, when this all sort of came to a head, right?
Yeah.
Let's take that as sort of the next step in the process, right? Everything prior to that may lose considerable value. However, nothing from that day forward is going to be affiliated with, or at least we don't think it is necessarily affiliated with, if it's come directly from said source. So if it's still in the secondary market, it could very well be. We have no way of knowing that. But
Yeah.
if it's come from the source of an authenticator from July 15th forward, I think things retain their value. I think things even increase in value because now we know that there's set scarcity to that, and that the chain of possession or chain of goods or what have you hasn't been corrupted anywhere along the way, right? So it goes
Yeah.
from authenticator has piece of memorabilia, they bring it to the player, player signs it, authenticator authenticates it, that COA is good to go. That sticker is good to go. It's directly from them. And that's how we know a player's piece of memorabilia carries the weight that it does. Prior to July 15th, in any way, shape, or form, with the exception of 2 to 3% of the marketplace, we have no idea of knowing anything.
Yeah. Oh my God. It's going to be a definitely going to be news to watch. It's going to be a scandal that you want to keep your eyes out for. Matt Schilling, again, collectibles on SI. On X, it's at MJ Schilling. Be sure to follow him because you want to be able to get all the latest information on the scandal that's going on in the sports memorabilia world that has been rocked right now. Amidst the National coming up, we are just a few days, actually, 12 days away from the National coming up here. We're going to get Matt, to tell everybody here where they could follow him again, not only on X, but also the work that he's doing at Collectibles on SI. Matt, give everybody a little bit of background on you there.
Yes, sure. So I've been writing for Collectibles on SI now for just about a year. But I've been in the business 35 years. I've, built a reputation with some of the best breakers, with some of the best folks that are out there, with some really good colleagues. Be sure to follow me on X at MJ Schilling. Updates, articles, news, retweets. It's pretty fun over there. We have a good time. But keep an eye out for the stuff that I'm putting out there. Keep an eye out for my updates as it relates to this. And keep an eye out on everything that comes across your own desks, because you're going to want to make sure that it's come from the right source and it's certified and it's transparent and, it's authenticated, because now we're at a point in time where we're going to question everything. And I think it's better that we do rather than we don't.
Exactly. That's the reason why I follow Matt too. And I make sure that I get my news from him, and you want to do the exact same thing again on X at MJ Schilling. Collectibles on SI. Matt, again, appreciate you joining us here for Grading the Market, the emergency episode of Grading the Market. Eric Jacob, Anthony, your true host for Grading the Market. We'll be back here very, very soon. But again, you want to go to Sweep the League TV on YouTube, hit that subscribe button so you get this episode along with the other Grading the Market, Sweep the League TV, Play the Sith. You get a whole bunch of stuff over there. And that's exactly where you want to go, is YouTube, search Sweep the League TV, hit that subscribe button. So for Matt Schilling, it's Rudy Campos Jr. Until we Sweep the League again, we'll see you later, knuckleheads.
Alrighty, later.